Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
My background is I grew up in Worthington, Minnesota, and moved to Sioux Falls in 2000. I have 3 kids, Jade, Max, and Nora, 12, 9, and 5. And I have a wife of 18 years named Jill. Jill manages a thrift store called New to You on 49th and Western. And they're a big reason why I'm running in this race. So when I moved to Sioux Falls in 2000, the first organization that I got involved with was due to a lady named Cherepa Place who recruited me to be on a committee for an organization called Main Street Sioux Falls at the time. And I remember clearly that we were dealing with some issues about retailers having problems with this loop and beer bottles on doorsteps each morning and huge vacancy numbers. And it's been such an honor to see what's happened to downtown over the last 18 years while I've been here. It went from being a place that you didn't want to go on a Friday night because of some of the activity, some of the traffic, to a place where everybody wants to go on Friday night. I'm really proud to have been a really small part of that. Last 10 years of my life, I've owned a company called Click Rain. We started in the 8th and Railroad Building downtown. There was no other place I wanted to start this business than downtown. We moved next to Parker's Bistro, and now we're at 7th and Phillips, and have been there for the last 10 years. Look forward today to talking about hopefully some of the issues that are important to me related to narcotics growth and crime in our city that relates to downtown, our workforce growth challenges I think that we're all experiencing, and lastly, transparency and communication on City Hall, which is going to be really important for the next leader of our city. So look forward to getting into those questions today. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. There's no going over time there. Just gonna stay on time.
Hello, I'm Kenny Anderson Jr. I'm a lifelong resident of Sioux Falls. My father was a former city commissioner back in the old form of government in the late 80s, and sort of put a little drive in me to give back to public service. I went to school at Hawthorne, Axtell, Washington High School. At the end of my junior year, I was sort of lost, did not know what I was going to do. And at that time, I went down to the armed services, and I spoke to some of the recruiters. The Marine recruiter told me, we'll take you if you can get your guardian to sign a parental permission form. I took it to my mother, said sign it so I could play basketball my senior year. She didn't read it. A couple days later, I got home, my father was there. We had a long discussion. After that, when he signed it, he looked at me and said, son, you're not tough enough. 3 months later, he came and watched me graduate. The only thing I was guaranteed was to work on aircraft. I was meritoriously promoted out of boot camp. I finished second out of 89 in my platoon. I spent 8 years as a city councilman. I've seen a lot of changes happen here in Sioux Falls, and I feel that I am a person that can help this city move forward and avoid some of the issues that we're seeing happening now and some of the issues we've seen happen in larger communities. I am very much into taking care of crime, as I'm working on a crime commission with the FBI and the Justice Department. And we are looking at working together with the neighborhoods to work on that more. Also, I work on affordable housing, and I want to see some changes done in that with our city. Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Kenny.
It starts beeping at 2 seconds. 3, okay.
Right.
Hello, my name is Greg Jamieson. I am a current state representative from District 12, and last Friday was our last day in legislative session. It felt like graduating from high school. I got to clean out my desk and come home now for the summer. It's not very often in life you get that feeling, so it's a pretty good feeling. But going back, I just wanted to mention it and share the message that I grew up in Sioux Falls. I've lived here all my life. I was one of those free-range kids, you know, that could leave home at 11 o'clock, and in my family we had 9 kids, so if maybe I skipped a day or two and didn't come home, they probably wouldn't know. So I grew up in Mayberry, And clearly, we do not live in Mayberry. 2008, I was elected to the city council, served 8 years there. I ran for mayor 4 years ago against the current incumbent, and I didn't win that race, but I learned a lot about myself in that race and learned a lot about Sioux Falls and all the issues facing it. And it seems like they've all continued on. You guys, a lot of you guys know me. We had a huge discussion regarding the event center and where it should be. And I was totally committed to having it downtown because I understood the economic impacts that it could create down here. Sioux Falls needs another anchor tenant like that, another entertainment venue like that. The event center's done. It's moved. We get that. We're all kind of moving on in life, you know, but there are opportunities for others to happen down here. And I look for those opportunities all the time when I'm down here. Railroad relocation land has a great opportunity. Sioux Steel's land is a great opportunity for downtown. Either way, you guys have heard me before in the past talk about downtown and my passion for it. I hope to continue it. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Beat the beeper.
Beat the beeper. Hi, I'm Jolene Letcher, and like so many of you, I grew up in a rural community. I was a farm kid and a small town kid and a 4-H kid, and I came to Sioux Falls 18 years ago and started my career here. Was a TV reporter for Kello, but in addition to sharing those stories about Sioux Falls, I also found home for me. That this is the place for me where I met my husband, I will raise my daughter, the place where my soul is full. That's what Sioux Falls is for me. And while I had the chance to tell so many stories as a TV reporter, what I'm excited about is the next story that's ahead of us as a city. And that's going to require vision and leadership unlike anything that we've seen before. If the issue that matters most to you in this election is trust and transparency, then I am your best choice. From the beginning of this campaign, we have led with openness. And yep, you've probably all heard me say a few times we're going to take the door down, but there's more to it than just taking down the door. It's opening up the decisions. It's being sure that the public has insight into why we're spending and how we're spending their money. It's doing Facebook Live sessions, not just with the mayor, but also Facebook live streaming our city council meetings to encourage collaboration and input. If the issue that is of the biggest concern for you is growth, then I am your best choice. Sioux Falls is the city where I took a little crazy idea, and you know what? I grew it into a biotech company that is #1 in the world. And if crime is your biggest issue, then I am your best candidate. No one else can tell you how they personally took being a victim of one of the worst crimes that can happen to them and changed the laws to save our families. That's what I'm going to do, and that's what I am excited to do with our next chapter and telling the story of Sioux Falls that's ahead.
Thanks, Jolene. Jim.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. I was born at Sioux Valley Hospital, the oldest of 8 kids. It's been a while ago now. As you know, it's called Sanford. We grew up in North Maine, not too far from here. And my family, when I was in junior high school, or excuse me, in grade school, attended Hawthorne School and lived on North Prairie. I've seen Sioux Falls change a lot. I remember playing over at my grandma's house in North Maine, and we go down Cardboard Hill in the back there. We called it that, where Tower Hill is, down to the train tracks, and we follow the train tracks to the falls. It was really cool. We had pits down here. We had Louis Zabel's over underneath the viaduct, you know, some great metal reclaim yards. I remember in the gas station days hauling radiators and transmissions and stuff down to pits, opening them up, pouring the nice oil and antifreeze into the ground, you know, so they could reclaim the metals. A battery cracking operation that was down there. A number of different things. I remember in high school going to Falls Park at night, and it was a great place to go because you didn't dare get out of your car because you never knew who you were going to run into down there in the trees, the people that hopped the trains. Sioux Falls has definitely changed, and it's because of the vision of people like Steve Metley and Mayor Munson that Sioux Falls has changed and will continue to change. I grew up here. My business is here. I bring one of the largest entertainment opportunities for people down into Sioux Falls. We have for 22 years, Hot Harley Nights. It's a great place to have a party. It's a great place to live, and I want to be part of that as we continue. I've been involved with governments for over 20-some years, as serving in the consul out in Brandon and also in Sioux Falls. And I've run and operated a business that we've grown significantly over the years, and now we're in 2 states with over 100 full-time employees. I believe that I've got the experience and the opportunity and the vision for this Sioux Falls to be its next leader. And I truly look forward to serving the people of Sioux Falls as their next mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And Mike?
Hi, my name's Mike Gunn. I was born in Germany, came over here when I was a year old with my mom and my stepdad. He adopted me. Became an American citizen when I was it was in 1970. I've lived here all my life pretty much after that. I wasn't politically involved until recently because didn't really have a goal of being here, okay? But the biggest thing is I fought behind the scenes. I started a business when I was about 25 years old. I got told that it couldn't happen. I got told that there's no way I should be able to be in business, and it's still going today. About the only time you'll ever hear about me is if it's in the news and they're taking me to court for something. So I've stood up for what was right, and I've won. They say I won. I don't know if I won because it always costs you money, so win or lose, I still lost. When it costs you money to stand up for what you believe is right, I did that. I want to bring that to Sioux Falls. I want to bring that to Sioux Falls so that the citizens are protected no matter what the law says. Because just because it has a legal term does not mean that it's lawful. And up until today, if people haven't opened their eyes, they'll never notice. But a lot of our rights are being told that we can't have. Our dreams are demolished. Our ideas are told that we can't have them. We need a city that's going to open up to everybody to say, hey, if you want to start a small business, we can't have 3,000 different restrictions telling you that you can't do it. Why can't we look into the fact that maybe they can do it? Our working class, unfortunately, is a reality that it is the one that supports our tax base. It's not our government subsidies that support our tax base. We're going to run into, I'm sure, a few questions about affordable housing. But if you really think about it, if the government's involved in affordable housing, how can we change that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We will hand the microphone back down to Kenny for the first question. And that is, what is the biggest opportunity you see downtown that you could address as mayor? And what is the biggest challenge you anticipate needing to address?
Well, with the Sioux Steel announcement, now I think we have 2 great opportunities. Number one, with the railroad redevelopment happening, I think that is something that is really going to energize the eastern side of our downtown. And with the Sioux Steel announcement, I think everyone will say that's just something that we've been waiting for a long time. And I'm very excited to see what will develop down there. The problems that could come up will be normally just taking a look at the money. Both of these are probably going to need TIF as far as some cleanup. I do expect that at the Sioux Steel property. But after the railroad redevelopment project started, we were told there wasn't going to be much happening there. But you know that can change as soon as you put a shovel in the ground. So I'm looking at the challenges for the city on being able to help do public-private partnerships on this, as that we have other challenges that are going to be happening. We have the new industrial park that is going to need some funding. We have the 85th exchange over I-29 that is also going to need some funding. So unfortunately, we only have so much money to work with year in and year out. And we'll need to take a very hard look at the CIP and reprioritize to make this happen.
Okay, thanks, Kenny. Greg, biggest opportunity you see downtown that you could address as mayor and biggest challenge?
You know, obviously the railroad property the city owns, and that's a big piece of land that we could sell. And that's going to happen. That piece is already moving. Sioux Steel is a private development, and they'll be taking care of their own. But I think really the biggest opportunity is with the Sioux River. As it comes through town, as I learned a long time ago, anytime you have a river like that flowing through your downtown, you need to treat it like liquid gold, because the opportunities on each side of it are huge. And funding for the River Greenway project really has dried up. And a lot of that's probably because of priorities for some people. And as you know, I know Jody knows, but as most of you should know, the CIP is developed through the city and through the mayor's office. The mayor has a heavy hand in determining where that money is going to be spent, on which projects. And we need to restore the funding for the River Greenway. We need to continue that. We need to close the link or the gap between Falls Park and Faywick Park, if I could say it that way. So the challenge is there isn't enough money to do all the things we need to do in our community. The economy is not growing like we need it to. We all need to hope that the farm economy turns around, and it will in time, but we need to start today prioritizing the reinvestments in our River Greenway and the capital plan. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Jolene.
I think you're going to hear from all of us. Obviously, we have huge opportunities down here. We have Sioux Steel, and we have the rail yards, and we have the river. That is universally what people are going to say. But what is crucial in the opportunity and in the challenge is not just growing downtown, but connecting it to our other neighborhoods and our other parts of town. And no other candidate has been as passionate about building up public transportation and connecting the outer edges of our city. And even if we want to say, oh, they don't exist or they're not going to grow out there, people live out west, they live out east. So let's make it possible for them to easily get downtown, to go to your shops, to spend money in your stores, and to work. And that's where we are advocating for improving our public transportation system, for making it easier for people that may live out on the west edge of town to get downtown to work, to then take advantage of the opportunities for the development that we are going to have in the rail yards, for whatever the future may hold in Sioux Steel, which will be amazing. Those are the things we're going to have to do. And as mayor, we need to be prioritizing transportation. And while it will be a challenge and people will tell you it's hard, the last thing I want in City Hall is someone that looks at something and goes, that's hard, I don't know how we're going to do it. What I want in City Hall and what I'm going to do is say, you know what, that might be hard, but we are sure going to do it because it matters to downtown and it matters to every part of the city as well. And that's why transportation and connection are our opportunity and our challenge.
Thanks, Jolene. Jim, biggest opportunity and biggest challenge?
Well, the biggest opportunity for development, I think, of course, the downtown organizations, Downtown Sioux Falls Development Foundation has been very active in creating development in downtown Sioux Falls. And now with the announcement yesterday of the final piece, the Sioux Steel property wanting to be developed, I think it's kind of almost completing the downtown initially, the initial core area with the railroad property that we have. I think one of the challenges that we need is to do understand what the revenue base is and where the revenues do come from. We're at 183,000 people in Sioux Falls now. The next mayor is going to see the population hit 200,000 people. There is only so much money to go around, so we need to tie into that. But it's going to take the efforts of the city organization as well as the organizations, business organizations in downtown to see this development take place. With the limited dollars the city has, our responsibilities are with fire, are with safety, the ambulance system, the infrastructure, things that we can do. But we need to look at the TIFs. We need to look at any tax abatements that are available. We need to make sure that those tools that are available for a development are up to date and fit the needs of today, okay? And then that's those assets that the city can bring to this development as we go forward. We have to remember, though, that it's going to be private business that's going to drive the development downtown, because we are a big city, a fair-sized city for the state of South Dakota. There are other parts of our city that needs to be looked at also, and we can't ignore them. So we're going to have to work together as a community to ensure we're going to be able to develop it, and it's going to take a little bit of vision.
Thanks, Jim. Mike?
I believe that our biggest challenge is going to be parking downtown. It's pretty obvious. We have any big events, people can't find a place to park. So trying to figure out how to get funds for that, it's going to be, it's going to be a challenge. But do we want to raise taxes? I don't believe so. I think we need to work within our budget. If nothing else, work below our budget. Because raising taxes is doing nothing but strangling us. Every time we raise taxes, it was obvious last year that we had a low sales tax rate. I wonder why that was. Let's raise taxes to get more funds available. So I think that our parking is going to be the biggest issue downtown. We're getting some more land, like you said, the rail yard area and stuff. But I also don't see that Burlington Northern's going to sell anymore real soon. They got to make a turnaround, or they got to do something down there before they're going to move the rest of them tracks, or even think about selling. So that's going to be another challenge. But the other thing that I believe that we need to do is start finishing what Sioux Falls started years ago. We've got properties in Sioux Falls that haven't been done for over 60 years. They've been ignored, put on the back burner. When are we going to finish what we started? Any business is going to want to finish what they start first before they keep expanding. And if we don't do that, we're going to leave a lot of areas that we could really tap into that we can't right now because they aren't done. We don't have sidewalks, we don't have storm drainage. We have very little areas, and the area I grew up in has been left untainted. So we need to get in there and finish that stuff.
Thanks, Mike. Pass it back down to Paul. Again, the question is, what is the biggest opportunity you see downtown that you could address as mayor, and the biggest challenge?
You know, the obvious opportunity is the rail yard redevelopment, and I've been licking my chops at that one since we launched Click Crane in the 8th and Railroad Building in 2008. I knew that development was going to happen. I think the fact that we're finally there is exciting. The challenge is right now, I think we all want to know what the city is looking at there, what sort of opportunities are we looking at there, and we haven't been kept in the know as a public. Even releasing the names of the developers who submitted proposals was a challenge recently in the city. So I think that opportunity leads to what I consider to be the biggest challenge we have with downtown, and that is the mixed perceptions versus realities that a community has about downtown. So there are pro-downtown people, and there are people who say, we've stuck enough money into downtown, my roads are crumbling on the west side, and we need infrastructure on the north side. I look at downtown as a hub and spoke model versus a donut model. You have a strong downtown and a strong core. It's important for recruitment of workers and workforce. It's important for business development and business recruitment and economic development. So the biggest challenge I see is actually shifting the dialogue to making sure that people know that the millions of dollars we're investing in downtown is for the betterment of the entire community, not just the handful that are considered downtown advocates. A rising downtown lifts the boats of the whole community.
Thanks, Paul. We're going to start the next question with Greg. Many of you wanted to know more about the rail yard redevelopment. Clearly the candidates want to talk about it too. So we're going to drill down a bit on that. Greg, the question is, downtown rail yard redevelopment, it's a project going on 15 years in the making, if you can believe that. What is your next step there, and what's your big vision for ensuring this is a cohesive development that integrates with the surroundings? Next step, big vision.
Well, let's see, the next step certainly would be to hear and see some of the details that the city does know. One of the first thing that you'll see happening is the tracks be removed, the grade of the ground be kind of leveled off and some gravel put in. I got a notice to speak into the mic. So first thing is you've got to also have some connectivity around it and allow traffic to move around these new potential buildings. So it's going to, we've already invested, the state, the federal government invested, was it $27 million to purchase the land. The city now owns it and has responsibility to continue developing it, to sell it off as we go. And removing the tracks is first, smoothing the land out, because it's going to take some time to put in some other infrastructure, some water and sewer and other utilities in order for it to develop. It's a slow process. My hope at the end, though, is that it's a great mixed-use facility. It's tough, though, to consider building a residential property next to an active rail line. People need to realize that. And so the adjoining property owners are going to have a great opportunity to expand their businesses and do great things. And I look for that to happen, but keeping an active line next to new development is a tough challenge, but I look for mixed use.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Jolene, next step on the rail yard, big vision for the rail yard.
I think it's hard for us to sit here and go, oh, we know what the next vision is or the next step, because the honest reality is when I walk in as mayor, I don't know what deals are being inked right now. And so if we're going to talk specifics, we don't know what's been agreed to and what's been done. And that's part of the frustration I'm hearing every time I go out and have conversations with folks. They don't know what's happening with their money. You all don't know what's happening with your money. And that's why I was the candidate that when there was, the names were not released of the 6 developers, I was the candidate out there saying, let's list those names. Let's put those out there because this rail yard redevelopment is for all of us. This is a piece of downtown Sioux Falls that is going to change and make a difference for all of us. And that's why we all should know what those deals look like. And I think that's vital. Now, what do I see in the future? I think we see neighborhoods in downtown, and we talk about neighborhoods, it's a new type of neighborhood. And I think the rail yard area will be mixed use, and it will be mixed income housing, and I think it will be a spot that people go, where are you going today? I'm going downtown, or I'm going to the rail yards. But what the future of that area looks like right now, a lot of it's being determined behind a closed door, and that's a door you and I don't have access to. And that's a door that I've joked about it and said, yeah, I'm going to take it down, but the reality is we are going to take that door down. And we are going to make those deals more open because that is such an important part of downtown, and we need to know what it's going to look like, and because it will change downtown.
Thanks, Jolene. Jim, next step, big vision.
Honestly, you don't know don't really know what the plans are in the part of the city other than what I read in the newspaper too. So once you take office as mayor, you're going to have to sit down and pull all the troops together and tell me, okay, what's the story going on here? I think the biggest opportunity that we truly have right now is, if you look at what the Sioux Steel property is, the developable land downtown, which is the rail property, which is challenges in itself. It's a long piece of property. It's not all lumped together in one area. It takes over multiple blocks. It's very narrow. There's going to be challenges for development there. But I truly think what the opportunity is maybe it's time that, along with Downtown Sioux Falls, the Development Foundation, or with the Chamber and the city, and the people at Sioux Steel, that we sit down, we draw up another plan, take a look at the city's plan for the downtown area, and working together, maybe we can come up with an idea of what we need to see in downtown and kind of redefine what the vision is going to be for the downtown area. I think it's a great opportunity that can be jump-started again now. The piece that we had at Sioux Steel is a private piece of property, right? And only they really truly know. We've seen some pictures of what they want to do downtown, but only they truly know what's going to happen and how it's going to develop. So I do believe that it's time that we put together an organization to take a look at what our development opportunities are and how we can redefine downtown again.
Thanks, Jim. Mike.
Yeah, I touched base a little bit on the rail yard area, and that I'm pretty sure that Burlington Northern's not going to sell the rest of their property until they can get some sort of a turnaround for their rail cars. The biggest point I see here, though, is, again, budgeting. I believe that we need to make sure that we have the money, and we have sufficient money that we can see where we can cut, where we can spend, and quit spending on things just because we want an overnight sensation. One of the things that's hurting Sioux Falls right now, we've spent millions of dollars on things. Yes, they're good. However, we've expanded our tax base to the point where people are struggling. And until we get the people that are in the city besides us to have a comfortable life and something that they can go for, their dreams, people are giving up. People are leaving Sioux Falls. There's a lot coming in, but people are leaving Sioux Falls for many different reasons. But the thing is if we keep increasing our spending and we don't give them the opportunities or the areas that are finished, like I said before, we need to finish what we've started before we keep spending millions of dollars on trying to make everything happen overnight. People are losing their faith in what we're doing. It's not just us here in this room, it's the whole city. And until we understand that they matter too, things are not going to be working very well in the next 20 years. So I hope that people understand that by the right people in office, we need to listen to the rest of the city.
Thanks, Mike. We will come back down to Paul again. A reminder on the question, what's your next step for the rail yard redevelopment and your big vision for ensuring it's a cohesive development that integrates with the surroundings?
So I think one important thing with the rail yard discussion is to talk about the decision timeline for this. So my hope is that the decisions we make in the rail yard get passed to the next administration, and that nothing gets pushed through in the next month and a half. So that's point number one. The second point, though, is with Sioux Steel's announcement just yesterday, I think that gives us pause to re-examine what we're going to do with the rail yard, because now we have a kissing cousin development right across the river that has a chance to be an extension of that? And how do we make sure that this whole development is dovetailing together? I think Scott Risden said it yesterday, and it's a very wise idea. He said, we're not releasing any ideas because we want to hear from people. What do you want to see here? That process, if it's been happening with the rail yard, I haven't been a part of that or heard about that. What do the people want? What does this community want to see in that development? And I think that's very important because you heard the other candidates say, I don't think any of us feel like we have a good idea of what's being tossed around with that property. It's very important that whatever we invest in the rail yard development gives us a strong ROI. And I look at the building we're in right now, and the $15 million we put in the River Greenway, and the $150 million in development that's come around that. This building, all the buildings we can see outside these windows are a result of that city investment. I think it's very important that the investment we make there has that same potential for spin-off development revenue and spin-off sales tax revenue.
Thanks, Paul. Kenny?
I'm going to join in with the rest of them here and say that with the railroad redevelopment right now, I'm not informed on exactly what's going to happen next. We know that our current mayor is trying to speed this to a conclusion for another win, but I hope that he puts the brakes on this, and especially with the new announcement of the Sioux Steel property. As we've looked over the years at our east side of the river and the different changes we've had ever since we first attempted to drop the zip feed tower and then finally got it done, we have to take a look at this whole area here and what the plans are for the east side of Sioux Falls. As we start talking about developing this area here, this is just one step on developing more of the east side all the way to Cliff Avenue. So we need to take a look at this. We need to have a public-private partnership. And on the public side, we need to have more meetings. We need to know what the people would like to see for the eastern side of our downtown. So I would say that this is something that definitely needs to be slowed down a little bit so that we can move forward in the planning of what we're going to do with this very important property that you, each and every one of you own. Thank you.
Kenny gave me a good lead into this next question, and that is, many of the redevelopments we've been talking about could require public-private partnerships. We'll start this one with Jolene. What, if any, public dollars or funding mechanisms would you support to make those visions a reality?
I think sometimes we have a tendency to make public-private partnerships the boogeyman, and that they're this big evil thing. And a big part of that, and I think if we look at some of the projects that have come downtown as well, is that we haven't made that process open. You haven't known how it works. And so, you know, public-private partnerships and the use of TIFs when they will long-term benefit the citizens of Sioux Falls, those are good things. The problem is when people don't feel like they can understand why and how a deal is done, that suddenly it feels like maybe it's not right, you know? And so when it looks to the future and what will I support, I will support public-private partnerships, and I will support TIFs that long-term are going to grow the city. And first and foremost for me, what's most important is that they will maximize your money in the best way possible. I'm a business owner, and I know what that means to have to make every dollar stretch. Because if you don't, at the end of the day, it doesn't do you as the owner any good, and it doesn't do your customers any good. And so that means also as a mayor looking at it as an investment and as a business owner as well. How can we take these opportunities and stretch them and make the most of them?
Thanks, Jolene. Jim, again, what, if any, public dollars or funding mechanisms would you support for downtown redevelopment?
Well, again, it's going to I think it's going to depend a lot upon what it is that's going to be developed downtown, and it needs to have the outside, the business people need to be involved in this, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are making the financial investment significant, and they need to have an ROI. They need to have a return on investment for the dollars that they're spending there. So we do have to have an understanding about what kind of development we're going to see on the rail property, and it's great to have the conversation on the Sioux Steel property so they get a better idea of how they're going to develop their property or who will develop it. We need to look at things that are available, like our tax abatements that are available for new businesses in some cases, manufacturing businesses specifically. We also need to take a look at the TIF process. And once you determine what's going to be done downtown, we all know that you stick a shovel in the ground down here, it's going to take some kind of work to clean up that soil. Because it's terrible underneath there. I explained that to you earlier about some of the different businesses that I know that were downtown. So that's going to take a lot of effort. We also need to look at what other opportunities do we in the city have from permitting process to speeding that up a little bit. What else can we provide for assets, the city that is, to help the individuals, to help the developers be able to develop the programs and the properties that they want to. So it has to be that public-private partnership. There's no doubt about it, because things are getting more expensive for all of us. Whether you're in private business or whether you're in the government, things are just more expensive. So it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a little bit of time to figure it out, but it's got to be done as a downtown community, not just the city.
Thanks, Jim. Mike, again, what public dollars or funding mechanisms would you support downtown?
Well, there again, being in small business myself, I operated my business under the fact that, I kind of had my dream. I set it all up that I ran it my way, but at the same time, my customers became part of my business because they had insight, they had ideas, and they had things that they wanted to express or tell me what they thought. Did I follow everything that they said? No, but I did listen. And the biggest thing is no matter what we do with the public partner, private partner relationship with the city, I think it's a great thing that we can do that. But I believe that we should start having open town halls at least once a month so that the citizens can come from every area of the city, or have open town halls in every district periodically, so that we can get the input from everybody involved, because it's not only our tax money, it's theirs. It's not only the business tax dollars that's going to be spent on projects like this, it's going to be every taxpayer, every homeowner, every employer, all of us. So we need to really look at the fact of what the overall citizens want. And the only way we can do that is to open it up so that they have a voice in it as well, and they can express to us their concerns on the whole situation. So it's not really where we spend the money, it's are they going to be behind us, or are they going to be ones that are concerned about who's with us on it? Because I believe that we need to know who we're partnering with, regardless if it's a 501(c) or anything like that, or a big company. We need to know.
Thanks, Mike. We'll come back down to Paul. Again, a reminder on the question. Public-private partnerships, what public dollars or funding mechanisms would you support?
So the city does have a lot of tools in their toolbox, like sales tax rebates and tax abatements, TIF, things like that. I don't think you could say that the city has over-TIFed. I don't think you would look at Sioux Falls and say that's a city that just has abused the TIF process. I don't think we have. I will say, though, that we have made it difficult for developers to understand what the TIF process looks like. How does the city make decisions? Is it, do you think City Hall will like this project, or do we have to have a checklist so it's more of an objective process of what projects do and don't qualify for TIF? At 10 o'clock, I'm going to meet with a developer in this city who has several public-private partnerships with this city going at this time. I talked with the guys at Washington Square, and if it was not for TIF, that project would not have happened. And I can say that with a lot of confidence. Those guys took a tremendous financial risk in that project. And because they did, and because the city provided them with a TIF, we have a brand new shiny Josiah's Coffee next door. We have a Blarney Stone right around the corner. We have retail going on the first floor. What's happening because of that investment is exactly what you like to see when you provide incentives, is the development and the spin-off that comes from the city investing in a project with the private sector. So I look at those incentives as great tools that we have in our toolbox to grow sales tax revenue and development revenue in our city.
Thanks, Paul. Kenny.
Well, the first thing I'd want to do is take a look at the project. I do support public-private partnerships, and as far as the city's economic toolbox, I would be willing to use whatever we need to use to get the project done. But first, and especially talking about TIFs, we need to make sure that the other partners that are affected by TIFs also agree with what we're doing. The schools and the county are also affected when we do TIFs. So we need to make sure that there's communication between those entities so that they know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that they agree with it also. Because that's how we're going to grow as a city and a community. Secondly, I believe that we need to, once again, take a look at the development of the property, the type of property we're going to be developing, some of the challenges that are going to happen in developing that property, and what can happen once we do put a shovel in the ground. I believe that also there needs to have more public input, whether it's from the Downtown Association or just by neighborhood meetings. We need to hear from the public. It's their money that we're going to be spending. And I feel that if we can be more open with the public and make them understand the processes that we're going to use, it will help us get these projects done.
Thanks, Kenny. And finally, Greg, what public dollars or funding mechanisms would you support downtown?
They're already getting probably millions of dollars allocated for downtown. You consider the railroad relocation project. That's the city's property already today. And the additional dollars that it's going to take to redevelop it, to make it available for development, is going to be at the city's expense. And that money has been already set aside in order to do that. Kenny Anderson and I were both on the city council when we were a part of approving some of the CIP planning for the funding of that. The TIFs for downtown, certainly you've seen, I've supported those. The facade easement programs, I've supported those. Tax abatements that could occur in other developments, look for that to continue. It's important for us to have a strong downtown, and it needs to be supported by the city, because from here, everything else is good. Sioux Falls, the downtown is the core. It's got to be good, and it takes millions. The River Greenway project is really probably the bigger source of it all. We stopped funding that years ago through the CIP, through the mayor's direction. That has to be restored. And it has to be restored in a well thought out, planned approach. And it's going to take millions of dollars to do it. I'm committed to doing that because I understand the value of it. So I would look for those things to continue.
Thanks, Greg. Next question will begin with Jim, and that is, last week many in this room heard from Charles Marone, the founder of Strong Towns, whose research has shown that downtown development produces high returns on public investment and that building outward can be financially unviable. Would your percent of public investment for the core versus the outlying areas look similar or different to the city's current funding plan? Would you invest more in the core than currently being done, more in the outlying areas than currently being done, or similar?
I have no idea.
He's looking at me confused. I thought I'd better try to repeat.
I have no idea.
But Jim was there for Charles Marone, so I know you know the philosophy and what we're getting at here.
Yeah. It's a great concept, and it was really great to look at. And what's really powerful about presentations like that, it allows you an opportunity to step back and think a little bit and envision what could possibly happen. Again, I come back to the realization that our city is funded by several means, but primarily by sales tax dollars, okay? And that's the tax dollars that our retailers are able to collect on goods that they sell. Then we get a small piece of the property tax. The development downtown needs to make sense. We need to make sure, again, I keep coming back to the opportunities that we have with the city partnership and being able to provide those opportunities for independent and for private business to be able to grow, because they're the ones that are going to make the investments. They need to be profitable. The city can only do so much. And that's providing the infrastructure, the water, sewer, having an understanding about drainage issues that we have, making sure we don't dump bad water into the Sioux River. All of those things the city can help take care of. But when it comes to really spending and having a vision of and building downtown, it's going to take those developers and people in private business to do that. So I think we need to continue to look forward. We need to look more at getting together as a group to come up with another plan, to look at our plan and update that plan for development and see where the city can get involved. And that's something that's going to take a little bit of time for me to be able to get used to once I get in as your next mayor. But it's something that I am committed to doing in partnership with the downtown Sioux Falls and the Chamber.
Thanks, Jim. Mike, your philosophy of investing in the core versus outlying areas.
Well, I think we need to invest a lot more in the outside areas because the core is here. I mean, it's always been here. The core is pretty much our administrative area. It's our our multicultural as far as work, play, and live. The thing is when we lack the outside core, where are people going to come from? If we don't have an outside core, what does downtown do? If we're not going to be attracting people from the outside core, I don't understand how we can have a downtown core that can have nobody to come. Here again, we got to come back to that fact of the parking situation, which it's an obvious that we don't have enough parking for any big events because we'll have people parking all the way back to Cliff Avenue. But if we don't start looking at the outside and finishing what we've started, like I brought up before, how can we say that we're doing something good inside if we can't finish what we've already started? And there's a lot of places on the outside areas that you can talk to people on an everyday basis that are frustrated because their taxes have gone up. Their property values have gone up, but yet they can't sell it for that value, but the taxes are so high that they're wondering why they're paying them because they don't have the structure, the infrastructure done and finished that they're paying for. So people are not happy, so if they keep seeing money spent in the core and nothing in their area, I don't understand how that'll work.
Thanks, Mike. We'll come back down to Paul. Again, reminder, many of you heard from Charles Marone and his philosophy of development around the core versus outlying areas. Where do you come down on that, Paul?
Well, I want to thank Downtown Sioux Falls for bringing Charles Marone in because I think he gave, for those of us who heard him, a lot to chew on. And after his presentation, I actually went back to Public Works and I asked Mark Cotter, I said, how many miles of road do we maintain today versus in 2000? And it was about 650 miles in 2000, about 950 today. We actually have less roads per capita today than we did in 2000. I thought it would be the opposite. It's close, but the point that Marone was making is as you have urban sprawl and you grow outward, it gets more expensive to maintain this infrastructure. So one, I think the city is doing a good job at managing that growth. However, and no one in this room can argue with me that I'm not a huge downtown advocate, but I will say that some of the infrastructure development on the outskirts of our city is being neglected. And as I've been knocking on doors and driving around, it's become very evident that we need to put some money back into some infrastructure on the east, north, south, and west sides of town. We will continue to invest in the core, and my administration will continue to invest in the core. But I'm going through neighborhoods right now that are 3-4 years old that are needing roads resurfaced. And I'm hearing a lot about this as I'm campaigning as well. So I think there's a balance there with your core investment versus your rural or urban investment. I also think this is one of the challenges of public transit. We don't have the density to support public transit efficiently with the sprawl that we have. So I want to see a better investment in some of the outlying parts of the city.
Thanks, Paul. Kenny?
I think when we talk about the core, we have to talk about more than just downtown Sioux Falls. The core of Sioux Falls is actually a lot larger than that. What we're seeing is a lot of these homes around, especially around our two hospitals, growing older. And we have to make sure that we don't make the mistakes that we've seen in larger cities, larger, older cities, where those cores deteriorate. And then we have further expense to try to bring them back or to redevelop those. Also, as we take a look at the programs that our city has to help homeowners and also landlords upgrade their homes, that is only really looking at the core of our city. But we have other areas of the city that are growing older also. And those folks, those property owners also are going to need that assistance. So I do agree with Paul when he talks about having a balance here. But taking a look at the core right now has to be where we make those expenditures. We work with the business communities and taking a look at the hospitals and their development plans that they have. They're going to be eliminating some of those neighborhoods. And where are we going to recreate those neighborhoods? Because those are affordable neighborhoods right now. So taking a look at our infrastructure here inside the city, I believe that we're on the right track and moving forward. But as we build new, we may have to upgrade the requirements of those infrastructure needs.
Thanks, Kenny. Greg?
So as I think part of the question was regarding percentages versus the current administration, certainly I would have a higher percentage for downtown than what has been previously spent by the current administration. So look for that. But you also need to know that my intentions, which I couldn't have been more clear about during the 4th of July parade while driving a motor grader through the parade with smoother roads ahead on it, that the investment that the city has made in all of downtown, consider that, consider the event center, all those other investments, even a water treatment facility. We have more than $1 billion invested in our roadways. And it takes a tremendous amount of money to maintain them and keep them in good working shape. And we have to provide those arterial roads to those outer new developments because they won't do their developments if they don't have the new arterial road. Then the developer is responsible for building all the other roads within the neighborhood. It's then the city's responsibility later to maintain those roads. Remove the snow on them, for example. You have got to continue the outside growth, and you've got to continue supporting the downtown core. So as a matter of perspective, we won't be forgetting about any part of town in order to take care of one. You do have to balance that out, and you have to lay it out in a CIP plan. It takes about 5 years to lay it out to make it right. So, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. And finally, Jolene.
Well, I just quick want to ask, how many of you work downtown? Please show of hands. Okay, higher, higher, higher. How many of you work downtown? Okay, now how many of you live downtown? Okay, so what matters regardless of if you work downtown or you also live downtown, or if you drive out to the west or the east or the south or the north, is what universally matters to us is that we have a strong workforce and a strong economy. So when we're sitting here weighing what percentage goes here, there, or wherever, what we need more than anything is a strong economy. And a strong economy means that we have a mayor that I will be, that understands how to bring in business and how to grow business. And a mayor that can speak firsthand for what it means for this city to allow their business to grow. For me, that was taking a crazy idea and saying, I'm going to try something, and growing that into something that is now internationally recognized in sales. It was taking something and being able to take an idea of an advertising agency, and today working with companies like Coca-Cola. That's why I took the wrapper off my bottle here, because it wasn't a Coca-Cola product. But what's important is that we have a mayor that can speak that language, that knows how to grow business, and that when it starts to be the process of recruiting in new industry, that mayor too can say this is an inclusive and diverse community, and a mayor that's going to stand up for that. Those are the things that if you raised your hand that you work downtown, or you kept that hand up that you live downtown, those are the things that matter to all of us regardless.
Thanks, Jolene. I'm going to change it up a little bit for this next one to try to pick up some time. We're going to start with Mike. The question is about the River Greenway, which has come up already in this forum. The city has a master plan for the River Greenway. Many of you know that. The first of 4 phases goes from Falls Park to Faywick Park. It's partially done. Future work is not budgeted in the current 5-year plan. So let's just do a quick yes or no, 30 seconds or less. Do you reprioritize the 5-year plan to accommodate the River Greenway?
Yes, I do, but it also comes down to budget. Until you get in there and see where our finances are, where our budget is, and where we are on thinking about spending money, I would like to look at that first, but yes.
Thank you. I love that. Quick yes or no. Thank you, Mike. Let's come back down here. River Greenway not budgeted in the 5-year plan. Do you reprioritize to fit it in?
Yes, I do reprioritize, just because I've seen the economic impact that that investment that the city has made has had on our downtown. It's probably on a handful of items that I say have been transformational to our downtown. I used the number earlier, $15 million investment. That's returned tenfold in development, including the building we're sitting in today. So absolutely, I reprioritize to make that one of my priorities as mayor.
All right, he beat the buzzer too. This is going well. Kenny?
I also am going to say yes. After attending the Mayor's Water Summit last September, I learned a lot about what's going to be needed to return the Big Sioux back to what we would like it to be. It should be a recreational, it should be an attraction for our citizens and people coming to our city. And right now, I don't think you really want to get in that water. But working, once again, talking about the Mayor's Water Summit, working with the state and other communities, I think we can make this happen.
Thanks, Kenny. A yes or no on reprioritizing for the River Greenway, Greg?
As I mentioned before, yes.
Absolutely. It has to be a priority. And as many of you know, former Mayor Rick Noby is a good friend, mentor of mine, and as well as has endorsed this campaign. And he told me early on that that project which he started is the thing he is second most proud of in his life, next to his children. And I think we should all be able to say that that's something that runs through the downtown of Sioux Falls. We have prioritized it, and that we are as proud of that as we are of being able to let our kids dip their toes in it as well. So absolutely, yes.
Thanks, Jolene. We're already back down to Jim. Yes or no on reprioritizing the Greenway?
The answer is yes. It's a no-brainer. And I did swim in the Sioux River as a kid, and I did canoe in the Sioux River, and I'd like to be able to do it again.
Take my daughter down? Sure. All right. All right.
Let's go back down to Paul. And I'm going to see if we can't, let's do 60 seconds on this next one, just because then I think we're going to fit everything in. Paul, describe the role that you as mayor see for this organization, Downtown Sioux Falls.
So I actually served on the board of directors for Downtown Sioux Falls for several years. Also mentioned I was on Main Street Sioux Falls, the marketing task force early on. And the main role of Downtown Sioux Falls is to be the lead champion and cheerleader for downtown development in our community. And so the important thing for Downtown Sioux Falls, though, is to work really closely with our existing city organizations like the Chamber, like our Development Foundation, like GOED, to make sure that our strategies, our marketing strategies, our communication strategies are dovetailing together. So I have always felt that the role of Downtown Sioux Falls is to be the evangelist for downtown, not to do economic development. We have organizations that do that, but to make sure our downtown remains vibrant, remains a place that we want to live, shop, work, play, and I think they do a fantastic job with that.
Thanks, Paul. Kenny, what do you see as the role for Downtown Sioux Falls?
I also see Downtown Sioux Falls as being a partner with the Chamber, Development Foundation, Forward Sioux Falls, and the City of Sioux Falls. I feel that they should also be a leader when we talk about downtown and the developments that are going to happen here. With the experience that they have, I know that they have a clear and precise vision in what they would like to see happen downtown. What I'd like to see them do more is make that more public. Make the public understand what we are doing downtown and why we are doing it. Once again, with that clarity, with that transparency, we can move this downtown forward and make it what we'd actually like to see it, especially the people that are sitting here in the room today. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Greg, the role of Downtown Sioux Falls.
Well, I think all of you are part of that. I would see you as the goodwill ambassadors for downtown to all of the other parts of the community. But as my understanding and experience with Downtown Sioux Falls is they've been a partner with the Chamber, the CVB, the Development Foundation, the City of Sioux Falls, the business owners all downtown. What their job, generally as I see it, is how can we make Sioux Falls better? A better place to start a business, a better place to live, a better place for all of us to visit and be a part of the entertainment downtown. So I see them as a strong advocate. I don't look for that to be diminished or removed under my administration. In fact, the whole nature of my leadership style is a collaborative one as well. And I see it working very well with Downtown Sioux Falls.
Thanks, Greg. Jolene, the role for Downtown Sioux Falls.
I don't think anyone's going to sit here in a room at an event sponsored by DTSF and say, oh, cut them out, right? The reality is DTSF is vital to the growth of Sioux Falls as a whole and to being a partner and helping the mayor. But you know what I would love to see, and I'm going to look right at Joe on this one, I would love to see DTSF going down to the Hy-Vee over on 10th and Kiwanis, where there's a group of gentlemen that get together every Friday morning, and they've got some stories to tell, let me tell you. But one of the questions they kept asking me was, I don't get why we put so much money downtown. And I would love to see Joe go down and have coffee with them and go out to some of those other outlying areas as well and explain why downtown is still important. They may not, in this case, this group led by a man named John, who is a very colorful and opinionated character, they may not always be coming downtown all the time, but I would love for them to join in that chorus of why downtown is valuable as well.
Thanks, Jolene. Jim?
I think as the city continues to develop, we got to remember that there are other parts of the city out there. And I would expect nothing less than what the Downtown Sioux Falls organization is doing right now. And that's the role of advocacy for continuing to rebuild our downtown area. And I would expect them to continue with that. I believe that's the mission that they need to continue with, so that we all have a better understanding of how important our core is for our downtown people. But I do think, too, that the city needs to be at that table. The city needs to be, the administration needs to have an understanding of the excitement that you have all in the downtown area, the passion that we all have for our downtown community. So the advocacy on the part of this, on the organization, I think is key. As we go forward and develop the rest of our town and as we continue to grow, we got to stay focused on that, too.
Thanks, Jim. And Mike, how do you see the role for downtown Sioux Falls?
Well, I agree too. I think that the services provided for the downtown area is in good standing. But I honestly believe before I would be done after my 4 years, what I would like to see is more involvement from the rest of the city. I would really like to see the downtown people, the committees, Chamber of Commerce, all of that. I'd like to see that they make sure that the rest of the citizens have a voice. We can all decide what we think is good for the city. We can all think that we know what's good for the city. But until we really try to get as much involvement from the rest of the citizens in this city, we're only speculating. So I would really like to see by the time I am done that we have more involvement than we've ever had. We don't want to make sure that people don't show up. We want to make sure that they do show up so that you're informed, I'm informed, and they're informed. You can only make a good, rational decision if you're well informed.
Thanks, Mike. We'll come back down. We're going to start this one with Kenny. We'll go back to 90 seconds, and I'm going to combine two themes in this question because they both have to do with how we get around downtown. We've heard from multiple national experts in the last few years about ways that downtown could become more walkable. We know that we have a parking system with ongoing challenges. So give us your vision for how to, first of all, make it a bit easier for people to park once they come downtown and then walk around once they get here.
Very interesting question. Sioux Falls has struggled with this. Our downtown, we've recreated our downtown at least 4 times in my lifetime. I've seen it when we had a mall downtown that didn't allow traffic to go through Phillips Avenue. That didn't work too well. So we tore it out and we put a street back in. Now we're looking at angular parking, which some smaller towns are using. But I'm hearing from some of the business community downtown that they're not very happy with that either. We have a very mobile community. And then we're also talking about public transportation. And when we've had our committees and everything talking about public transportation, my question back to them is, which way are we going to go? That is the first thing. We need to decide, what are we going to do for our downtown? Are we going to be looking for the mobile transportation? Are we going to look at public transportation? I think that's an important part of this whole decision. And then once we make that decision, moving forward with the things that we need to do. We had a parking study. I think we've sort of walked away from it. So first of all, we need to focus on what we need for downtown as far as how we're going to develop that, whether it's transportation, whether it's walking, bicycle. We need to make these decisions and then move forward with them to progress our downtown.
Thanks, Kenny. Greg, your vision for better walkability and parking.
Sure, I think there's been a challenge in in creating better signage and better paths, if you will, for downtown. It's been a challenge. The bid district generates what, close to $1 million? 500,000?
Joe wishes.
How much?
170 is what's projected for this year.
170,000.
Yeah.
So you can already see the challenge they have and have had as well. I know the city has done an effort to improve the parking signage, but those kinds of improvements would help everybody. A lot of visitors who come downtown who don't quite get it like we do and know where things are. It's kind of crazy, but you've got to be over the top with that kind of stuff. Downtown Sioux Falls doesn't have enough money to keep up to do it. There's all kinds of opportunities to improve it. The city's got to find a balance in all of that. So, access to the greenway, the bike trail system, all those kinds of signages, where the falls are. I mean, holy smokes. You would think that'd be easier for any tourist to find, right? Well, it isn't that easy. We all know where it is. So we've just really got to get to the next stage, the next step to really push it. So I would look to push to continue that. Our public transit system, access and availability downtown has a way to be improved. I look for an opportunity to do that before the beeper goes.
Thanks.
I keep thinking popcorn. I think the popcorn's going to go up. If we're talking walkability or parkability or any of that, it is, yes, we are a city of cars. We are a city in South Dakota where reality is winters get down to be, 20 below wind chill. Now, our brethren up north would laugh at us and say that's balmy, right, compared to Fargo. But what we've got to do is obviously address parking needs, which we've started to, connect in walkability, which I think when you look at the opportunities that are ahead of us with the rail yard to steel and also building in more walkable areas, those are terrific. But we have to keep talking about public transportation. And people may sit here and try and make you believe that public transportation doesn't work in a city this size. The reality is, if what we're going to say is public transportation does not work in a city this size, then we don't care about getting people to where they need to go. What that means is that we also are going to put an expectation on our families that are trying to make ends meet, that if you live on the far west side of Sioux Falls or on the way northwest corner of Sioux Falls, that the expectation is that you are going to try and make your rent, pay for the needs of your children, get food, and pay for a car, and probably not a really reliable car. And then what happens when that car breaks down? How are we as a city going to get you to where you need to go to have sales tax dollars, to have employees, to grow downtown? That is why public transportation is important. And that is why, as your mayor, I'm looking at creative solutions like microbuses and like technology to better route.
Thanks, Jolene. Jim?
Well, as far as parking downtown goes, I think traffic engineering in downtown Sioux Falls, they've identified a few things that they've already talked about in the study. The bump outs that we have to slow down traffic, providing different parking, the different parking methods they're doing down there. Walking downtown right now, we know it's working. Look at the success of our statue walk. People are getting about. You're not going to overcome the cold weather. We talk about development. We need to have a better understanding about what it's going to look like into the future with the railroad, and also with the Sioux Steel. What our needs are going to be. Right now we're going to probably have to build another parking ramp, probably towards the north end of the downtown area. If we're going to be successful in developing those with business and living and those kinds of things. So we do need to begin to have a little bit of thought process out there, but it also has to be about planning. So I think we've done a good job identifying things right now. I think, though, that we do need to get together as a group again, look at the downtown plans, and see what the future needs as projected are going to be. And then we're going to have to continue to look at this on an ongoing basis, because what we decide today is going to change tomorrow, right? So we need to have a process by which we can continue to look at the needs for our downtown and for our community when it comes to traffic and parking and so on.
Thanks, Jim. Mike?
Well, I believe that we've already, we've learned a few lessons here, but I believe it was Kenny that brought up the fact that we, closed off Phillips Avenue to make it a walkable sales area. It didn't work out too well. I guess sales must have dropped or something, but then we reopened it. So we spent a lot of money both ways there. But the biggest thing is it's all great to have, the bike trails, walking ability. The problem is I'm disabled. I can only walk about a block. So if I was going to shop downtown and I had to walk 16 blocks to get somewhere, I'd only get to a couple stores. So, we have to keep in mind that there's other people like me that are limited, not necessarily that they have a wheelchair, not necessarily that they have an electric mobility access, but I'm kind of stubborn, I don't want to use a cane. Anyway, the thing is we need to make sure that whatever we do, your businesses are also accessible. So how do we do that, but yet we want to make it a walkable bike trail situation? We have a lot more areas to look at, and we need to do a lot more discussions on this fact before we spend another couple $1 million or 200 million or 300 million or, you know, whatever it takes. But we really need to focus on what is the impact after we do it. Do we do it and then figure it out later? We've already got some of them problems already with sound problems downtown. Oh, we're going to do this here, and then next thing you know, now we've got problems. Why do we create a problem and then we have to fix it after the fact? Why don't we look at it before we do it?
Thanks, Mike. We will go back down to wrap this one up with Paul. Again, a reminder, the question is your vision for improved walkability and parking.
So I see parking as an infrastructure discussion as much as it is anything else. And so recently when the city invested in our parking ramp project, I think it was a great project for downtown, but even when that project is going to be completed, we're still going to be struggling with parking. As kind of a futurist and a technology guy, I like to look at, is parking and public parking something we're going to need in 20 years? If you look at the advancement in technology, the money we're putting into these ramps, are we going to own vehicles in 20 years? Are we going to have Lyft-esque rides that are self-driving vehicles that won't require parking ramps? I think it's really important to understand the current administration's view on parking. And we've been talking about parking since I first was on the Main Street Sioux Falls board. Parking has always been an issue. But when we talk about parking and walkability, recently we put up a sign at 10th and Minnesota that said, no turn on red when pedestrians are present. We added a when pedestrians are present sign on a corner where people have been hit several times on that corner. And we did that for traffic flow reasons. And I think that was a very important statement by our current administration about the walkability of a city, because I think that's a huge mistake. And so how do we create a city that is more safe to walk around, where I don't feel like I'm playing Frogger to go across Minnesota Avenue, and that we have dedicated bike lanes, and that we have a way that I can bike down Phillips Avenue and not feel like I'm going to get hit by a car. And so I think we have a long ways to go with walkability in our downtown.
With that, we're going to move to closing statements. We're going to start this with Greg, and here's what we're going to do. Give us your closing thoughts on your vision for downtown, and then finish the following sentence. If I'm downtown, you'll most likely find me at...
All right, well, let me start first off with the vision. So, again, first off, thank you for having me down here today. 3 things. We need to start a quiet zone study for the rail coming through town, not just downtown. So that means from 6th Street all the way through 49th Street. It's a big study. It's imperative we do that. But it's going to be expensive too. I support that. Second, we need to continue developing a 5G network within the city. So imagine when you're down here for the Parade of Lights parade and you can't get a dial tone on your phone. We've got to change that for public safety reasons. This Saturday, St. Patrick's Day parade, you probably won't be able to get a dial tone. A 5G network installed throughout our community has all kinds of opportunities for our community. Economic development, all kinds of other things. Third one, and maybe a zinger, if I could, we need to start a feasibility study to consider the idea of moving the Sioux Falls Canary Stadium downtown. That has a huge opportunity for our community. It would free up parking at the event center, and it could create a whole new economic engine for downtown, for the arts, all kinds of people who could use that facility here. We've got to start that discussion. Look for me to do that. Third, let's see, wrapping up the
We'll
question.
most likely find you at. I can't wait to hear. So.
I would bet the diner. That's where you'd find me.
Thanks, Greg.
You're going to most likely find me at downtown, out talking to people, spending money. My husband's nodding his head in the front row, right? Yeah. Shopping downtown, going to Oh My Word and seeing what cupcake they have from Oh My Cupcakes. But I think in that's also the story of what I see as the vision for downtown Sioux Falls. It's the place that when you need something, you can pop down there and buy it. And at the same time, you can grab something to eat. And if you work down there, you can get your errands done, you can spend money. And it is a place where people work, but even more so, where they also call home. We know we've got 2,000 people that call downtown home. That number is only going to grow. And the 15,000 that work down here, it's only going to grow. And so what we've got to do is be sure that we are bringing in industries, we are bringing in opportunities, and that we have a mayor, which I will be, that's going to champion downtown and connect it to all parts of the city as well. Those are what are really important. And as you go to make your decision of who you're going to vote for on April 10th, this city sees before it opportunities like it's never seen before. So you know what it needs? It needs a mayor like it's never seen before. And that's going to be me. A mayor that has championed transparency throughout the campaign and in our administration, one that knows how to grow business because I've done it, and one that knows how to fight crime because I stood on the doorstep of the criminal that took my innocence, and I will fight for our children not to have the same happen to them.
Thanks, Jolene. Jim.
I'm always the optimist, and quite honestly, I believe as a community, we're going to continue to grow. We're going to find and identify what the needs, the future needs, and the future vision for the downtown Sioux Falls is. We do have a great city. We're at 183,000 people. We are the economic driver for the state of South Dakota. We need to continue to make sure that we provide the opportunity for people and businesses to grow, for people to move into the city with good paying jobs, which is still number one on the mind of everybody that's out there. It's so hard to be able to say what is going to define us in the future, or what do we need for the future, because it is a future. We can look in the past and see what we've done, you know, as far as the development that we've taken from removing all of our steel yards here, the vision of people that we've had in the past and how we've been able to grow. I do believe that that's going to continue, especially with the focus of the downtown organizations that we do have. So that is going to continue. I feel very happy with it. And we need to continue to look at unique ways that we're going to be able to grow this community. And I believe that the administration is the one that can facilitate those discussions and be at the table on all those discussions to make sure that we improve our community for our people. I know what it's like to be able to grow business because I've done it. From 2 people to over 100 full-time employees, to companies that are tested by its people, to companies that give back to the community. I've served in government. If you would look for me, you're going to find me. When you elect me mayor, I'll be in City Hall in downtown. Otherwise, I'm usually at the Washington Pavilion. Okay?
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jim. Mike, where will we find you downtown? And then your closing statement, please.
Well, you're either going to find me at City Hall or you're going to find me at any of the administrative offices, because just like my business, I know that from the bottom up. I can clean the toilets and I can do everything from the ground up on my business. When I hire people to help me, they pretty much have to make sure that they rely on me. Not by any fault of mine. I've tried to teach them everything I can, but it seems like I guess I'm the only one that can run it from the bottom up. I kind of like it differently. But I'm going to go out to every administration area, whether it be the sewer department, wastewater treatment, the fresh water, anything that has to do with the city. I'm going to go out there and put some. I'm in Old Grubs today, but the thing is I'm just like you. I'm going to go out there and get a first hand. I'm going to work with them in their departments, because I don't believe anyone that's never been mayor, and we do have some that have been here and been there and done that. We don't know what we're getting into, but the only way we're going to actually be the best mayor we can be is to get out there and get some hands-on. Everybody can come and tell us how things are going, but what about if we just get in and get some hands-on so we know? There's no reason we should just assume that we're being told the truth. And I don't like being told something that isn't true, so I'm sure that the people are tired of that too. So I want to go out and be hands-on with every department we have and make sure that they're doing their job properly so that we can do our job properly.
Thanks, Mike. We'll come back down to Paul for your closing statement. And to finish the sentence, if I'm downtown, you'll most likely find me at...
I'll start with that. Big runner. Greg 605 running right here for all your running needs. Sells great shoes. I'm often on the bike trails. But there's 2 things I'm talking a lot about on my campaign. The first is our crime and narcotics growth. And you're going to continue to hear from me about that. But the second issue, and probably the biggest threat to our city, is our workforce challenges that we're experiencing. And if we don't figure out how to make a city and craft a city and a culture where young people want to stay, where they want to move back to, we're going to have some serious economic challenges in the years ahead. When I started Click Crane at 8th and Railroad in 2008, I was 1 employee. Fast forward to today, we're on the other side of the river here. 36 employees, $5.5 million company. The oldest employee is 43 years old. That's important because you're going to need a mayor that understands how to recruit and retain young people, how to grow a young workforce. I know a big reason for that company's success is not only the workforce, but the location of that business. And we were able to recruit and retain a lot of those people because we were downtown, and they want to be downtown, and they're attracted to a hip downtown. And so I see investing in a downtown as a critical piece of our workforce challenge. A lot of people wouldn't make that equation. I do. An investment in downtown is an investment in solving this workforce challenge that we're going to be experiencing in the years ahead. And so I think that's a very critical thing for skill for your next mayor to have. So thank you, DTSF, for hosting us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. And finally, Kenny.
Answering the question where I will be, right now where I am at a lot of times when I'm downtown is Marlin's. Why? Because there's a lot of people down there that I can interact with and listen to. Looking at our city and the history of our city, whether we were a commission form of government or now this strong mayor form of government, each mayor has had a vision. Those visions have come from discussions and listening to the public. Each mayor has used and supported those visions to make our city a better city, whether it was improving Falls Park. When I returned from the service in 1980, Falls Park was not a nice place to go. But with the vision of the mayor and the commission, we started doing things at Falls Park that has made it what it is today. And then when we look at this downtown Sioux Falls, whether it's the River Greenway or Phillips to the Falls or redesigning the downtown, we have done things to make it better for citizens to enjoy and for businesses to grow and prosper. I can remember when we had a large entertainment district and then it fell and disappeared. Our city had a problem, but now we're back up with Sculpture Walk, with the pavilion. There's many things that we can do, but as a mayor, I will support the visions of what people have helped me get and given, and we'll move this city forward.
Thanks, Kenny. And that concludes our forum. So I want to thank Downtown Sioux Falls for inviting me to moderate today. I want to thank all of you for coming, as well as all who are watching online. And with that, I will turn it over to Brianne to conclude your membership meeting.
Thank you, Jody. I'm going to push this up now. Thank you again to our candidates. We really appreciate all of your passion for being here today. Give them a round of applause. A couple other things. I want to thank Core Trust Bank and Cherepa Place for hosting us today, and to Ode. I believe they provided us with some coffee and some treats today, so thank you all so much for doing that. Great answers today, but if you are looking to judge your candidate based on how they put a float together, you might want to attend the St. Patrick's Day Parade this Saturday. I think most of you will be involved in that, so looking forward to that. I had something else, and now I forget what I was going to say. I had something else, and it's completely lost on me. So again, just thank you for being here this morning, and we'll see you next month. Joe, did you have something else?
I just wanted to thank the candidates. We put together an art piece and screen print that was done by a downtown business, Green Prints, and so this is for each of you, and whoever gets elected, we hope to see it hanging in your office. So I want to thank you for being here, and really appreciate your passion for the city and participating in our forum. So,
don't forget to vote on April 10th. That's what I was going to say.
There you go.
Thank you.
If you could, as you walk by, please help yourself to just go on another cup of coffee as you're walking out.
Thanks, Ann. We're adjourned.
You know that I don't think it's a secret that people know I'd love to be your mayor forever.
We don't come up here to entertain you. We come up here to inform you.
What kind of morons run this outfit?